there truly is an architect responsible for the perfect machinery and balance in nature, they surely had to leave the final day of their creation to work on the masterpiece that would become Chile. They would have had to practice all the tricks and all the magic that would involve creating a landscape such as this. Welcome to Chile. On our first day of adventure in the northern part of Chile, we came to visit an iconic mountain for all Copiapoa lovers. And with a summit of 3,200 feet above sea level, Morro Moreno is just a bit higher than I would have liked to climb on our first day after a flight overnight. But since we'll be heading south from here, I didn't want to miss up the opportunity to come see this beautiful mountain. The climb was pretty difficult, and although we wouldn't reach the summit, we did have to climb quite a bit in order to reach the healthy population of plants. Hello and welcome to another episode of our channel. We are in what's probably going to become my favorite country in the entire world. I have been dreaming and hoping and just waiting and planning this trip for 5 years now, believe it or not. And unfortunately, when I was ready to finally come here, it was about 2.5 years ago, and it was 2020, right in the middle of COVID, and Chile closed its borders, so I wasn't able to come. So as you can imagine, I have been just seeing this in my mind 24/7 for the past 5 years, and to finally be here is just amazing. So I'm really happy that I'm able to bring you guys along for this amazing journey and to show you guys some of my favorite plants in the entire world. Copiapoa is the genus of cacti that I first got into when I started collecting. And so these plants definitely have a very important meaning for me personally. So it was due for me to make it out here and see these beauties out in habitat, and of course show the experience to you guys. Hopefully that you guys can also fall in love with them and help me and help all other collectors and lovers of these plants make sure these things stick around by not buying plants poached from habitat. And if you see your friends collecting these plants poached from habitat, tell them they're assholes. It's all right, we'll let it fly. But anyway, let's not talk about poached plants right now. Let's talk about this beauty, this Eulychnia eulychniensis that I have right here in front of me. This is a subspecies endemic only to this mountain, or this morro. That's what they call these mountains here in Chile that don't have neighboring mountains right next to them. They call them morros. And this is a special plant because only in this tiny little region can you find it. If we go to the next hill over, you'll also find Eulychnia eulychniensis, but it's another subspecies that looks completely different. So it's just amazing to see these tiny micro ecosystems that live on each one of these mountains. And the reason for that is these plants don't survive off of rain the way most of the plants that we've seen in habitat do. By the way, if you haven't caught the Mexico series, go back and look at those videos. They're amazing. But anyway, these things survive thanks to the fog that you can see behind me. It's starting to roll over this mountain. It's called Kamanchaka. It's what they call it here in Chile. And it's the reason for our brand name, East Coast Kamanchaka. It's this amazing fog that inspired me to start all of this. So you can imagine just how much I love these plants and how I'm feeling right now that we just saw. My first Copiapoa habitat was one of those Copiapoa atacamensis that you can see in the frame, but we saw them in sort of the beginning of the mountain, way down lower. We're at about 2,000 feet in elevation now, and we hiked all the way up from sea level. So this is a pretty big climb that we did. And the reason for that is the fog only goes to about 500 meters. I'm not sure about the translation to feet right now, but it only goes down to about 500 meters. So as you can imagine, all plants that survive or that depend on the fog to survive can only do so at the elevations where they're able to meet the fog, and the fog is able to condense around the plants and sort of provide a little bit of moisture to the root systems. So all the cactus plants that we saw at the beginning of the mountain down at lower elevations are not doing so well. They look like they're in incredible stress. Some of them are already dead, and a lot of them look like they've been dead for many years. And the reason for that is these fog oases, that's what they're called, are sort of tiny little microclimates that only happen or are only available for these plants at higher elevation in certain mountains. So each mountain is truly another world. On this mountain, like I said, we found Copiapoa atacamensis, and we also found Eulychnia. And the real population of Eulychnia is way higher up the mountain, maybe another 1,000 feet up. But the Kamanchaka fog is already starting to creep all over the mountain, and we don't want to get caught in it, because the problem is, you can imagine going down this very steep hill surrounded by fog and with very low visibility is not a good idea. So we're gonna try to catch as much content for you guys before the fog. We'll probably send the drone up there and you know, maybe we can sacrifice a drone. I'm not going up there to get lost. So we're gonna see if we can catch some of those beauties up there, because the higher we go, the better these guys look. We saw some that looked half dead, some that looked like just straight corpses, completely dead. And it seems like the higher we go, the better shape they're in. And also we're finding plants that are covered by algae and moss and all sorts of interesting plants. And the reason for that is the extremely high environmental humidity that these plants live in. You can imagine that being covered by fog every single day, well, you're bound to pick up some algae, I guess. So a lot of these plants have some ridiculous coloring to them, some very bright, vibrant orange and yellow. And I mean, I'm just blown away. This is such an amazing ecosystem. I hope you guys enjoy this series, where I might never go back home from Chile. But if I do, we'll get to edit these and post them so you guys can enjoy these amazing habitats. And as always, please take care of these plants. Don't buy poached cacti. Don't support your friends if they're collecting poached cacti. Tell them they're assholes. Let's go. I must admit that the Copiapoa we saw on this mountain wasn't necessarily on my top 10 list of species I wanted to see in Chile. But after it welcomed us with a flower like that, and experiencing and seeing its environment, I will admit that it's quickly becoming one of my favorites. Copiapoa atacamensis may not be very popular in cultivation, but it's definitely an amazing plant worthy of admiration. This Copiapoa species in particular is able to produce flowers with just a tiny bit of rain, so it's able to have fresh seed throughout the year. We are now in the extreme northern portion of the range where Copiapoa species are able to survive, which is limited on all sides by different environmental factors. Farther north and to the east, the driest desert on the planet, the Atacama, provides conditions way too harsh for any cactus species to survive. In the south, wet winters allow the growth of shrubbery and other plant species which compete with Copiapoa for space, while the ocean is on the west. All right, we're at about 1,000 feet of elevation. You can see the ocean behind me, and we're still climbing down. This is a huge mountain, way higher than anything we had to climb in Mexico at least. But what an amazing way to get this series of habitat exploration videos started in Chile. What an amazing little mountain. And I got to see my first habitat Copiapoa, and that was a dream come true. I can only imagine how I'm gonna feel when I see the first Cinerea. But hey, atacamensis was beautiful, and one even welcomed me with a bloom, so what else can I ask for? And the most magnificent thing that I'm taking away from this mountain is definitely the Kamanchaka fog, and seeing how it interacts with this whole entire landscape basically, because it's not just the plants that it's interacting with, it's just the whole landscape, the mountains. You know, there's a reason why that fog stays hovering all around this area and it doesn't go anywhere. And we're definitely going to be talking about it some more. We're going to see some ridiculous plants hopefully, and hopefully we're going to be able to share them with all of you. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and catch you on the next one.